Welcome to Easily English Podcast.
Listen, learn.
Speak with confidently.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Easily English Podcast. I'm your host, Ali, and today Emma is here with me again. Hi, Emma. Welcome back.
Hi, Ali. Thank you so much. Happy to be here again.
Today's topic is something so many learners ask about: how to train your brain to think in English. Not just speaking, but actually thinking directly in English without translating from your first language. This is our biggest, most complete episode on this topic yet.
I love this topic because it's really the foundation of fluency. If you're always translating in your head, you'll always feel one step behind in conversations. Thinking in English is what makes speaking feel natural and fast.
Exactly. Today, we're covering everything: why translation slows you down, how the brain builds language pathways, many daily exercises, common mistakes, emotional habits, technology tools, social practice, and long-term strategies for lasting success.
And we'll keep everything practical and easy to apply in real life. Grab a notebook, get comfortable, and let's really dig deep today.
Let's start here, Emma. Why exactly does translating in your head make speaking harder?
Great question. When you translate, your brain does extra work. First, it thinks of the idea in your first language. Then, it searches for the English words. Then, it puts them in the correct order. Then, finally, you speak. That's 3 or 4 steps when it should really just be 1.
So thinking in English removes those extra steps.
Exactly. When you think directly in English, your brain goes straight from the idea to the words without the detour through your first language. This is why fluent speakers sound so fast and natural. They're not translating at all.
That really explains why speaking can feel exhausting for learners.
It does. Translating uses a lot of mental energy, so conversations feel tiring very quickly. Thinking in English, once trained, actually feels much lighter.
Such an important difference to understand. Let's talk about the brain itself, Emma. How does it actually learn to think in a new language?
The brain builds new pathways through repetition. Every time you use an English word or phrase directly without translating, that pathway gets a little bit stronger. Over time, with enough repetition, that pathway becomes automatic.
So it's really about training, not talent.
Exactly. And this is such good news for learners who think they're not good with languages. It's not really about talent, it's about how many times your brain has practiced using English directly.
That's such an encouraging way to look at it.
It really is. Children learn their first language exactly this way, through repeated exposure and use, not through translation. Adults can absolutely do the same thing with a second language.
So age isn't really the main barrier.
Not at all. The method matters much more than age. Adults who train their brain to think directly in the new language can absolutely reach fluency.
Let's move to practical exercises now, Emma. What's a simple first step someone can take today?
A really simple and powerful one is describing your surroundings in English silently in your head. Look around right now and describe what you see. There's a window. The sky is gray. There's a cup on the table.
So simple, but I can see how that builds the habit.
Exactly. It forces your brain to connect English words directly to real objects without any translation step at all. Do this for just a few minutes a day, and it becomes a natural habit quickly.
What if someone doesn't know a word for something they see?
That's actually a great learning moment. Look it up, or just describe it using words you do know. For example, that round metal thing instead of the exact word. The goal is to keep thinking in English, even with gaps in vocabulary.
That takes the pressure off needing to be perfect.
Exactly. Imperfect thinking in English is still much better than perfect thinking in your first language.
Let's talk about another technique, Emma: narrating your actions. How does this work?
This means silently describing what you're doing as you do it in English. For example, while making tea, I'm boiling the water. I'm adding the tea bag. I'm waiting for it to cool down.
I really like this one. It feels very natural to add into daily life.
It is. You can do it while cooking, cleaning, walking, or even getting dressed. It doesn't require any extra time. You're just adding English narration to things you already do every day.
What about narrating plans before doing something?
Great addition. Before starting a task, describe your plan in English. First, I'll answer emails, then I'll take a break, then I'll finish the report. This builds thinking in English into your planning process too, not just your actions.
Such a simple habit with a big impact. Let's talk about sentence structure, Emma. A lot of learners try to think in long, perfect sentences right away. Is that helpful?
Actually, no. It can slow the process down a lot. When you're training your brain to think in English, it's much better to use short, simple sentences at first. Long, complicated thinking creates pressure and hesitation.
So, simple sentences are actually the smarter starting point.
Yes, definitely. Instead of trying to think a long, detailed sentence, break it into smaller thoughts. I'm tired. I need coffee. I'll make some now. Short, connected thoughts are much easier for your brain to produce quickly.
And I guess with practice, the sentences naturally become longer and more complex.
Exactly. Just like we discussed with speaking. Fluency first, complexity later. Once simple thinking becomes automatic and fast, longer, more detailed thoughts start forming naturally too.
Let's talk about translation apps, Emma. A lot of learners rely on them heavily. Is that a problem?
Translation apps are useful tools, but if they're used too much, they can actually slow the brain's training process. Every time you translate instead of trying to think or guess in English first, you're reinforcing that old habit of relying on your first language.
So what's a better approach?
Try to guess or describe first, in English, before reaching for the translation app. If you don't know a word, try describing it, or think of a simpler related word you already know. Only use translation as a last resort, not the first step.
That's such a helpful mindset shift.
It really trains your brain to problem solve in English rather than immediately escaping back to your first language.
Let's talk about environment now. How does changing your surroundings help train the brain to think in English?
This is a big one. Change your phone language to English. Follow English social media accounts. Watch shows with English subtitles instead of subtitles in your first language. The more your environment is in English, the more natural it becomes for your brain to process the world in English.
I think a lot of people don't realize how much this matters.
It really does matter. If your brain constantly switches back to your first language throughout the day, it never fully commits to English thinking patterns. Small environmental changes make a big difference over time.
Any specific suggestion for someone just starting this?
Start with just one thing, maybe your phone language or your social media feed. Once that feels comfortable, add another. Small, gradual changes work better than trying to change everything at once.
Let's talk about journaling, Emma. How can writing help train someone to think in English?
Journaling is a wonderful exercise because it slows down the thinking process just enough to notice your patterns. Write a few sentences every day about your day, your feelings, or your plans, directly in English without translating first.
What if someone's writing is full of mistakes?
That's completely fine and actually expected at first. The goal isn't perfect grammar. It's building the habit of forming thoughts directly in English. Over time, both your thinking speed and your accuracy improve together.
Such a gentle, low-pressure way to practice.
Exactly. And it only takes a few minutes a day to start seeing real benefits.
Here's a fun one, Emma. I've heard people say once you start dreaming in a language, you're really making progress. Is that true?
It's actually a really interesting sign. Dreaming reflects what your brain has been processing heavily during the day. If English thinking has become strong and frequent, it sometimes appears in dreams too. It's not a requirement for fluency, but it's a nice sign of deep progress.
That's such a fascinating detail.
It really shows how deeply consistent practice affects the brain, even beyond conscious effort.
Let's talk about mistakes now, Emma. What are common mistakes people make when trying to train this skill?
One big mistake is trying to think in perfect, complicated sentences too early, which we already mentioned. Another common mistake is giving up too quickly because progress feels slow at first.
That's such a common experience with any new habit.
Exactly. A third mistake is only practicing during study time and ignoring the rest of the day. Thinking in English should slowly become part of your whole day, not just a lesson you complete and forget.
What about people who feel embarrassed practicing this out loud or even silently?
That's very common too. Many learners feel silly narrating their actions in their head at first. But remember, nobody can hear your thoughts. This is completely private practice with zero risk of embarrassment.
Such an important reminder.
And one more mistake, comparing your thinking speed to native speakers too early. Native speakers had years, sometimes decades of practice. Comparing yourself at the beginning stage isn't fair to your own progress.
Let's talk about music and podcasts, Emma. Can these help train the brain to think in English too?
Absolutely. Listening to English music and singing along gets your brain very comfortable with English rhythm and sentence patterns. Podcasts, like this one, help your brain absorb natural conversation flow, which supports thinking in English too.
I love that this podcast itself is part of the training process.
It really is. The more natural English input your brain receives daily, the more naturally it starts to think using those same patterns.
Any tips for using music specifically?
Try picking a song you love, reading the lyrics, understanding the meaning, and then singing along without looking at the words. This trains both pronunciation and natural sentence rhythm at the same time.
Such a fun way to practice. Let's talk about something a bit different, Emma. Emotional moments. Is it harder to think in English when we're stressed or emotional?
Yes, definitely. During strong emotions, excitement, stress, anger, our brain often naturally defaults back to our first language because that's usually the language most deeply connected to our emotions.
That makes so much sense.
This is completely normal, and even advanced speakers experience this. A helpful practice is trying to name your emotions in English, even simply, "I'm frustrated right now. I'm really excited about this." This slowly builds emotional vocabulary in English too, not just factual vocabulary.
Such an important, often overlooked part of language learning.
It really is. Connecting emotions to English helps thinking in English feel more natural and complete, not just mechanical.
Let's talk about technology, Emma. Besides translation apps, what other tools can support this training?
There are some great tools. Voice assistants set to English force you to speak and think in English to use them. Language learning apps with speaking exercises build both thinking and speaking together. And AI chat tools can be great conversation partners to practice thinking and responding in English in real time.
I really like the voice assistant idea. That's such a clever daily trick.
It is. Every time you ask your voice assistant something in English, you're practicing quick, natural thinking in English, even for something small like checking the weather.
What about audiobooks?
Wonderful tool too. Listening to audiobooks in English trains your brain to process longer, connected English thoughts, which supports more complex thinking over time.
Such useful modern tools for this kind of training. Let's talk about social practice, Emma. Is thinking in English alone enough, or does talking to real people matter too?
Both matter, but they support each other differently. Practicing alone builds the foundation, the habit of forming thoughts in English, but talking to real people adds real-time pressure and natural conversation flow, which is essential for true fluency.
So, alone practice prepares you, and real conversations test and strengthen it.
Exactly. That's a perfect way to put it. Try finding a language exchange partner, joining an English conversation group, or even chatting with friends who also speak English. Real conversations reveal exactly where your thinking and English skills are strong and where they still need practice.
Such an important balance to maintain.
It really is. Private practice and social practice work together, not separately.
Let's finish with long-term strategies, Emma. How does someone keep this progress going for months and years, not just weeks?
Great question. First, build these habits into your daily routine so they don't require extra motivation, like brushing your teeth. You just do it automatically. Second, track your progress occasionally, maybe recording yourself monthly to notice growth over time.
I love the idea of recording progress. It must be so motivating to hear the difference.
It really is, and it helps during difficult weeks when progress feels invisible day to day. Third, keep adding variety. New topics, new shows, new books, so your brain keeps growing, not just repeating the same simple thoughts.
Such a complete, thoughtful, long-term approach.
Language learning really is a long journey, but with consistent small steps, it becomes a natural, lasting part of who you are.
Let's talk about mindset to close, Emma. How long does this kind of brain training usually take?
It's different for everyone, but with daily practice, many learners notice real improvement within a few weeks and much stronger habits within a few months. The key is consistency, not speed.
So small daily practice really is more powerful than occasional long sessions.
Absolutely. 5 minutes of thinking in English every day builds stronger brain pathways than 2 hours once a week. Repetition, done consistently, is what truly trains the brain.
Such an encouraging and realistic way to end this topic.
It really is. Progress happens quietly, even on days when it doesn't feel like it.
All right, let's practice together, Emma.
Sure. Right now, look around you and describe 3 things you see, silently, in English.
Great. Now narrate your next planned action in English. What will you do after this podcast ends?
Perfect. Now try naming an emotion you're feeling right now, using a simple English sentence.
Excellent. Now try thinking of one sentence about a goal you have for this month.
Wonderful. And finally, try thinking of one short, simple sentence about your plans for tomorrow.
Amazing practice today. Emma, any final tips for training the brain to think in English?
Yes. First, start small. Just a few minutes a day describing your surroundings or narrating your actions. Second, don't rely on translation apps as your first step. Try to think or guess in English first. Third, change small parts of your environment to English, like your phone or social media.
Such practical, doable tips.
Fourth, use music and podcasts daily to naturally absorb English rhythm and sentence patterns. Fifth, try naming your emotions in English, especially during strong feelings, to connect language with emotion. Sixth, balance alone practice with real conversations with other people.
Such thoughtful, complete advice.
And last, be patient. Thinking in a new language is a skill built through repetition, just like any other skill. It takes time, but it absolutely happens with consistency.
Beautifully said, Emma. Thank you.
Anytime, Allie.
Before we finish, a listener asked, is it normal to still translate sometimes, even after months of practice?
Completely normal. Even advanced learners sometimes translate difficult or very technical topics. The goal isn't to translate 0% of the time. It's to gradually reduce translation for everyday thinking and conversation. Progress is a gradual shift, not an instant switch.
That's such reassuring advice.
Definitely. And it's important to celebrate the gradual progress rather than expecting instant perfection.
One more question came in. Does this really work for people who started learning English as adults?
Absolutely, yes. Age doesn't block this ability. What matters most is consistent daily practice using the techniques we discussed today: narrating, describing, journaling, and gradually reducing translation. Adults can absolutely train their brain to think in a new language at any age.
We got one more question. What if I don't have anyone to practice speaking English with?
That's a common challenge, but there are solutions. Online language exchange communities, conversation apps, or even AI chat tools can provide practice partners. And remember, alone practice, like the techniques we discussed today, builds a very strong foundation even before you find speaking partners.
Such a hopeful, encouraging answer to end on. That brings us to the end of today's episode, How to Train Your Brain to Think in English. We covered why translation slows you down, how the brain builds new pathways, describing your surroundings, narrating your actions, simple sentence thinking, reducing translation app use, changing your environment, journaling, dreaming in English, common mistakes, music and podcasts, emotional thinking, technology tools, social practice, and long-term strategies for lasting fluency.
Thank you, Ollie. I hope everyone listening feels ready to start thinking in English a little more today.
If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss our next lesson. And comment below, which technique will you try first?
We'd love to hear from you. Bye, everyone. Keep practicing your English every day.
See you in the next episode. Keep practicing and speak with confidence.
Goodbye and take care.